Call to order and pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Councilmember Bum.
Here.
Councilmember Kimberly Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Happy.
Here.
Councilmember Keller.
Here.
Councilmember Seeger.
Here.
Councilmember Pruitt.
Here.
And Mayor Wood.
Here. All right, additions or amendments to the agenda?
I don't have any.
Adoption of the consent agenda?
I move to adopt the consent agenda, including the approval of action minutes from April 14, 2025 council meeting. Ratification of bills in the amount of $80,642.58. And approve OLCC application for whiskey flats.
Second. Discussion. Yes, I am wondering if we should not pull off the ratification of the bill since we do have 40 checks missing. We have a gap.
And hold that up for discussion, I think.
Was that part for the council meeting minutes? And then the application for whiskey flats to happen.
Yeah, amend as stated.
And you were second, Baker, right? Or was it the
Same time with Keller, so I
Okay,
defer to whomever.
So we're gonna approve the action minutes April 14th, as the council meeting, and approve the OLCC application for whiskey flats tablet.
is there any discussion in regards to them two? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Nay, say nay. All in favor, everyone voted aye. And then we
I
go
want a
in,
motion just for the ratification of the bills, and we can discuss that.
yes,
So I move to ratify ratification of the bills in the amount of $80,040.58.
I second.
any discussion? I'm just gonna say, I think we should wait until we get all of them checks, because we haven't got a forwarding check missing from the last council meeting.
But that's just a gap in the number, the check numbers, and we're.
Yeah, so whatever we leave off at the last meeting, we should begin with the next one, just like the check registers, but there's a gap of 40 checks. So I would like to wait until we get the missing checks.
Push that to the next council meeting.
Yeah. Your email, you're not get a chance to look into it. Our new finance clerk was out sick today, so.
The next meeting, we'll do the ratification of the bills and then, okay. Well,
Can
Do
I
we need
revoke
to
my
move
motion then?
yeah,
Put it to next meeting, or do we just do that?
you can amend this.
Councilor Happy can just withdraw his motion.
I'll just withdraw my motion.
Partial presentations from FEMA Region 10, the Cafe Lots floodplain update.
Are you guys able to hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Dale Meck. I'm a civil engineer. I work for FEMA Region 10. I did hear the request to keep this brief, and I will do so. I'll run through the slides relatively fast, and then if there are questions, wanted to give you an opportunity to ask those, and I'll do my best to answer them. Do you have the slides available, or would you like me to share those on the screen?
We have hard copies available, but if council would like them on the screen, so that way they'd be in the digital minutes.
Okay, let me see if I can do that from here. It does not look like it's going to let me share.
You probably need to give them access. Go. Yeah. 1 second, Dale.
No worries. While they're setting that up, I will keep this brief. FEMA is working on a flood study update for Hood River County, including the city of Cascade Locks. That process is ongoing. It's been ongoing for many years. The key update is that next Tuesday evening at 6 o'clock, we'll be doing what we call a virtual open house. We'll have the state and FEMA available to answer questions from members of the public. And we're doing this briefing just to give city staff and the city leadership an opportunity to ask questions in advance. So you know what's coming and you can help folks who have questions get to the right place. Let's see if it'll let me share now.
You're able to now, Dale.
All right.
MECK, MECK.
All right. We'll make those small. Okay. Are you able to see that presentation?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, and we'll skip to the next slide. So we're here, flooding occurs, we know it happens. We're going to talk about what goes into a FEMA flood study update and what resources are available to help get the word out to local folks to see what those updates are. Flooding is relatively predictable. Earthquakes obviously are much more difficult, but flooding is something that, you know, the science is there. We can study the shape of a watershed. We can do some engineering and we can figure out with some confidence what statistically is possible and what could occur more regularly. And then we can put those on a map. In fact, the Congress, that was true even in the late 60s. We had the tools to be able to do this, although we can do a much better job today than we did. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But in 1968, Congress established the National Flood Insurance Program. The basic idea was, let's put that risk information on a map. Let's make that publicly available. Let's give that to local government. And then let's make flood insurance available in exchange for having the community regulate development in special flood hazard areas. The idea being that if we know where the hazard is, we'll all make better decisions. And then we can buy insurance for those situations where things happen. Most communities in Oregon participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, including the state itself and many tribes as well. But those maps have aged. The maps for this area are paper. They're from 1984. They have very limited information. They make floodplain management somewhat difficult, and the risk information presented on them is not as detailed or as current as we would like. So we're in the process of updating flood risk maps across the state, across the country. We still have some work to do in Oregon. As you can see, yellow areas are where we've got current studies ongoing. Blue areas we've mostly got those up to kind of current standards. But we also have some areas that we haven't been back to visit yet. So that's where we are. We're not picking on this particular community, but we are trying to catch back up. We've made some other investments in the area. That's in the slides. If you have questions, let me know. I'm going to skip past that. At a high level, one of the reasons that the study has taken a while is that it is a partnership. We work closely with the state. We work with local staff. We want input. We want communities to essentially own the maps and understand the maps. And so there's a lot of opportunities for both staff level comment and members of the public to provide input. And that's actually kind of the main reason why we're here today, is because we have that virtual meeting next week. At a high level, like, why is the new map different from the old map? The main reason is we have a much better shape of the ground. When they made the maps in the 80s, they had quad maps and not particularly great detailed shape of the ground sort of information. With LiDAR, we now have the ability to make a really highly detailed map of the ground, which really helps the engineers pinpoint, here's where the risky areas are, here's areas that are a little bit higher and have a lower risk. When we make a flood insurance rate map, there's kind of two key floods that we talk about and that we put on the panels. One is what people will sometimes call the 100-year event, right? The way we call it is that's the 1% annual chance event. You could roll a dice every year, and every year there's that 1% chance of that event. That seems low until you say over the course of a 30-year mortgage, that's a 1 in 4 chance of that event happening. So suddenly, over time, those odds go up. And we also map the 500-year event. That's called the 0.2%. And again, 1 in 20 chance of that flood occurring over a 30-year mortgage. Here's an example of the current firm. You can see it's a paper black and white map. there's this little dashed area in gray. That was the information that we had available and we provided to the city to regulate development. Not particularly detailed, and we all kind of knew where the creek was, right? We have much more detailed topography data. We have much more detailed engineering. We have a longer year of record on the flows, and so we can do a lot better job. We can provide a much more useful product. It's digital. There's elevations associated. There's depths associated. The hydraulic model is available, so if somebody wants to change that risk, they have a tool to start from instead of just a paper map. So it's a much better product, and should make local floodplain management and local flood awareness quite a bit easier. There's a viewer online, and all the links and stuff are in the presentation. People can go to that site and get an idea of where we studied and what level of detail we did at each individual location. But the key thing that I wanted to highlight is this online story map. This is available in both English and Spanish. This site, and I'll put the link in the chat later, but it's in the slides as well. It's got information in plain language that's available to anybody that explains why FEMA updates maps. They can zoom in on the map. They can get information specific to their property. There's contact information. They can ask specific questions and get specific answers. And that will all be discussed in more detail at the open house next week. But it's something that people can look at in advance or after the meeting. And it's got all the same information and available in both English and Spanish. Some of the key questions that people might have is, well, I live over here. How does this change my reality, right? What's in it for me? So they can get a map of their specific location. They can ask questions about, well, what engineering work was done? I'd like to understand why this is different than before. They can ask questions about insurance. They can ask questions about local floodplain management. We'll often lean on city staff or the state to help provide, floodplain management questions. Yeah. Let's see. After that open house, there's an appeal period. Basically, the program gives everybody the legal right to submit a comment or an appeal. If they don't like something about the way the maps are done, they can submit technical information. FEMA will review that information and make a determination. Is this just a comment that we should answer? Maybe they have a question. Or is this better data that we need to incorporate and adjust the maps with? That would be an appeal. So that's a 90-day period. That would start this summer. Gives everybody at the local level a chance to say, I think it should be this way. Typically, we ask that information gets routed through the local government before coming to FEMA, but people can always send it directly to us. We would then just share it back with you for awareness. After all those comments are adopted or resolved, FEMA sends a letter that says, okay, the maps are final. You have 6 months to update your local ordinance to incorporate those maps. Both the state and FEMA have staff available to help navigate that ordinance process. I can't speak to any of the Pick'em specifics, but the National Flood Insurance Program and the Endangered Species Act are complicated in Oregon. If there's any questions on that, we'll have to reach out to the Pick'em experts about the current status of that. I don't have more details tonight. This is the takeaway. May 6th, next week, 6 to 7, there's a meeting. If people are interested in information, we have lots of online resources coordinated with the city staff, the county. And those are already online. They'll be even more available next Tuesday. After we address all the comments, we'll send a letter saying, hey, maps are final. You have 6 months to update ordinance to adopt those. The earliest we'd be looking to have these maps become effective at the local level is in the fall of 2026. All of our contact information for pretty much both the state and the FEMA team are available, and we have some contract support as well. That's all in the deck. I think I kept that pretty quick. Any questions? I'd love to get some specific questions from you guys.
What time is that virtual meeting?
That is at 6. 6 o'clock.
Do you have that posted somewhere publicly, Jordan?
I believe we do, Kathy. Did we put it online?
I don't know if This came over today, so I don't
Oh,
think it
okay.
got on there today. There's been stuff on there before.
Bernard, go ahead.
Thank you, and really appreciate the presentation. So, we see these more extreme weather events that many scientists are saying are impacted by a warming planet. Are your maps and models incorporating the effects that we're supposed to be seeing in the Pacific Northwest as a result of climate change? Meaning when it does, the rains that do come are going to start becoming more and more intense. That's my rough understanding of how that's it's going to be affecting our climate out here. Is that in your models when you do your risk assessment here? That's a great question, Bernard. The short answer is no.
Dale, you're really quiet.
I can't hear him.
Hear you.
Let me try again. Sorry, my tech is somewhat limited. Still no.
No.
No, man.
There you are. You're back.
I'll try again. It's a great question, Bernard. And the answer is no, unfortunately. These maps are a snapshot in time, and they generally are looking backwards at historical events, historical hydrology. And so what I always tell people is this is a minimum level of risk. It could be higher. We're also not simulating what happens when there's a debris jam at the culvert, right? We know in a big event, sometimes culverts get clogged. That's not in the model. And so it's a minimum level of risk. It's one tool in your toolbox to help keep your community safe. We would love to go above and beyond. We really are limited in our resources and our authorities to do so at this time.
Right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Good. All right. Do you have any questions, Jordan?
I don't know.
I think we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Trilogy LLC Water and Wastewater Rate Study Update.
All right. So if you all remember, way back in July of 2024, Council, just realized that typo, approved the hiring of Trilogy LLC to provide a review and recommendation to changes of our water and wastewater rates. City staff are unaware of the last time a rate study was completed. Trilogy presented a first draft of the study back in January. City Council provided additional direction on research and exploring rate structure options. Trilogy is now back to present more of those options and a little more detail on what they found.
Okay, I'll get us started, and please feel free to stop me if you have questions along the way as we're going through this. But I wanted to give kind of a brief overview of the memo that we provided to Jordan, and then happy to answer more questions that you may have. So there was 3 issues that came up that required a little bit additional analysis from last meeting. One was what to do with the water utility debt service charges and how that might impact both the ability to pay off debt early and also customers. And then on the wastewater side, there was a question about how a substantial increase in the cost of operating the treatment plant with a new contract might impact the rates, and also looking at a different rate structure. So if we want to kind of jump into the meat of this on the water utility question, on page 3 of the memo, there's a chart there, and I think that is a good place to look to kind of walk through what we looked at and what the numbers mean here. So you'll see there's 3 columns there. Alternative 1 is what we presented in the rate study that we talked about back in January. And we kind of pulled together a little bit more of a summary of the different pieces of this. So you have 4 rates that are really supplying operating revenues. So there's a base charge, a usage charge, and then those 2 fixed charges for meters and hydrants. So those currently generate about $280,000. But your annual expenses, you really need to be generating close to $390,000 for those pieces. So we recommended an overall kind of 39% increase in revenues from those rates. So that has not changed. We would still, you need to raise those operating revenues, right? So the question is then, what do you do with the debt service charges? So in our original take on this, we suggested that you could reduce the debt service charges from generating about $252,000 of revenue currently and set those at really the amount that you need to pay your current debt service charges of 142,000 roughly. So that would be a 43% reduction in those debt service charges. So that's what we originally recommended. Because you have some balance in that fund right now, because those have been generating more revenue than you need to pay current debt service. Even if you drop those charges down right now, you could still pay off the debt service a little bit early based on that fund balance that you've built up. So overall, our recommendation initially was keep the overall revenues the same, just kind of shift the charges between this operating charges and the debt service charges, and that would have a minimal impact on your customers. The question was raised, why don't we keep the debt service charges at the current level? Because our intent was to pay off that debt early instead of running it all the way out to 2061. So that next column, alternative 2, is taking a look at that, where you would, again, have to raise the rates for the operating side of things, but then keep the debt service charges at the same level. And you'd be able to pay that debt off. If you keep putting money aside, like you've been doing, you'd be able to pay that off in 2038 for interest savings of about $470,000 of interest that you wouldn't have to pay through 2061. So in kind of the overall picture for your customers, that would increase your revenues by about 21.7%. And that would be the impact. Your average residential customer would see about a 21.7% increase in the rate from keeping debt service same, increasing the operating portion of the rates. And then we also took a third look at that kind of an in-between there, where cut the debt service charges somewhat by about 22% there. That would allow you to pay off the debt in 2043 and cut that interest rate savings back to about $300,000. But the net impact on a typical residential customer would only be about a 12% increase in their bill. So that's kind of outlines. There's obviously lots of other kind of in-betweens there, but that kind of bookends what we think are kind of, our original recommendation, or keeping the rate increase the same for keeping the rates the same for debt service, or someplace halfway in between roughly. So I guess with that, I'll pause to see if there's any questions about that analysis at this point.
No, we're good.
Okay, great. I'll keep going then. Moving on to wastewater. The question was, since you're in the process of looking at a new contract for operation of the treatment plant, in our initial study, we had assumed kind of the current amount with a 4% inflationary increase, right? And obviously you're looking at maybe a much more substantial increase in that, or even having to hire a person to maintain the treatment plant. So talking with Jordan about that after the last meeting, he said $250,000 for that contract would kind of be that break-even point where it maybe makes sense to hire someone versus contracting that out. Right now you're paying, I think the budget for this year is about $161,000 for that. So that would be a pretty substantial increase. So that was one of the options we looked at. And then the other discussion was, well, some years, you had a year recently where the contract went up by 15% for, year over year. So we looked at another scenario with, what if it went up by 10% per year instead of a more modest inflation? The bottom line is, the 9.74% kind of overall increase that we initially recommended, we still recommend that. That's really what you need based on current known expenses. Once you get the details of the contract worked out, or for the wastewater operating contract, you may very well need some additional adjustments to those rates to keep up with that if it's higher than the 4%. It's only about a little over a third of your operating expenses. So, if you had a 10% increase in the contract, that's not going to translate into a 10% increase in the rates. That's going to be, what we were looking at here was maybe 4% per year or something along those lines. So I guess our thought at this point is, it's kind of a choice of, do you want to do the 9.74% now and then adjust later once you know what those contract numbers look like? Or I guess the other option would be to wait. I think there was some discussion last time about maybe waiting until you know what those numbers look like. But, from our perspective, the 9.74 is we still recommend that. It's just a question of, will you need some additional adjustments to that? So Any questions on that at this point?
Bernard, you have a question? Here, we can't hear.
I apologize. I got kicked off for some reason. I missed the last piece. Did someone ask a question? She just answered it.
No.
Okay. Yeah, I do have a few questions slash comments. Are we all in the discussion part? Is that
We're,
Yeah, have a question, go
Yeah.
ahead.
okay? So regarding the, let me pull it up here. There it is. Regarding the operational cost increase.
Mhm.
So 39% is pretty substantive, you know, for an increase. And even though you can mitigate it by leaving or reducing the debt service payment, which I'm leaning towards, even with that, it is a substantial change. And I guess I want to kick around the idea, you know, in Gresham, we typically would do 3 and 5 year rate plans. And we would lay out, okay, over the next 3 or 5 years, you're going to see this much, and this much. And that would get us kind of where we want to be instead of really front loading the cost impact to customers in such a, you know, abrupt way. Was there a discussion about doing something like that? Because as much as I'm supportive of raising the cost per 1,000 gallons, is it 367? Is that what we're proposing?
as the rate?
Yes, from
Okay.
250.
Let me go to that table in there because I don't recall it off the top of my head. Yeah, it's, you know, there's different rates. So for the water usage charge, we were looking at going to 372 per 1,000 gallons.
Okay,
For the
yeah,
base charge, you know, increasing that to 1270.
right. Okay,
Right.
so to focus on the rate charge, I support that shifting, if you will, because again, that encourages conservation, encourages folks to, you know, improve their appliances, shower heads, a lot of things. And we become more efficient, you know, as a community in our consumption of natural resources. But
Right.
while I'm a proponent of that incentive, you know, in our rate structure, you know, this is a big leap. And so again, you know, part of my thought is maybe we go from 250 to 3, and then 3 to 23, $3 to 325, and then maybe in a third year we finish at that 372. If we did that, I mean, what kind of, you know, what kind of impact does that have to the financial,
Mhm.
you know, status of the water utility if we you know, we piece this out a little? Are we going to be okay? I thought from last year's budget, water was in a better position than sewer, and there might be a little, you know, wiggle room to accommodate that. But do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't have the detail in front of me right now to look at that, but well, like if you look in the rate study, like on page 10 and 11, we've got projected cash flow. It isn't broken out, unfortunately, by O&M, you know, operating versus the debt service funds. But I will say, looking at this, like the water fund, which is that operating fund, definitely had a lot less of a margin in it than the water system improvement fund and the corrosion control fund. So we'd have to look at that a little bit more. I mean, there probably is an opportunity to phase that in somewhat. Because I hear what you're saying. 39% is a big increase. And I guess when we were initially looking at this and just saying, well, overall, you've got plenty of revenue coming in to meet all of your obligations. So you don't really need an increase. We can increase this and decrease that. Now, if you break that apart and look at them separately, it's a little bit of a different picture, right?
Right.
At the time when we initially did this, that wasn't so much of a concern because we were coming at this from the perspective of, 39% rate increase. Okay, but then you can lower this one. So, you know, overall, it's kind of keeping everything on an even keel for everybody. So,
right. And I would just add that, we can always phase things in. There would be an impact, you know, likely because of the, you know, the loss of, you know, or fewer revenues for the first few years. Maybe we land at a slightly higher number at the end. Usually that's the case when we have rates like that. But it does kind of, yeah, it just kind of depends on which direction you want to go with the debt service charges, as far as like how we might be able to look at that, if you do want to decrease those at all or keep them the same. You know, I think that would have have some bearing on how we might want to phase that in.
I understand. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions, comments, anything? Maybe we're all caught up on questions.
Okay. All right. And now I'll move to probably the most complicated one to explain, the sewer rate structure. We have a chart on the second to last page here of this memo, like page 6, again, that kind of summarizes things. So to just step back and kind of provide a little context, right? So right now you charge most of your billing for residential customers is that fixed $45.40 per month. You do have some customers, again, we don't know from the billing data how many, but you do have some customers that go above that 10,000 gallons per month, and then they are charged a usage charge in addition to the base charge. So what we were looking at, and we didn't get into a crazy amount of detail yet because we're kind of talking conceptually. I want to give you an idea of, what this might look like before we go into too much depth with it. But you'd be basically moving from this system where most customers are paying that fixed amount to a system where every sewer customer would be charged based on their actual usage. And then the summertime usage would be based on, winter water usage. But it would be based on usage for every single customer. So there's impacts to both the utility from doing this type of a change, and then there's impacts to the individual customers. From the utility side, you're going from getting most of your revenue through fixed charges to trying to figure out how much of the revenue do we want to have from the usage charge versus the fixed charge, because now you're going from about 2.4 million gallons of usage for residential customers that you're billing right now on an annual basis. So going from 2.4 million to, we're estimating maybe, over 26 million gallons of usage that you would be billing for. So that's a big shift. So with this chart on table 6, on page 6, we were trying to kind of hone in a little bit on kind of roughly what that might look like for the utility overall, and then also for example customers. So the top of that table is looking at it from the impact on utility finances. So right now, with your 584 customers, you're bringing in about, and this is just residential again, roughly 318,000 of revenues from that base fixed charge, and only about 21,000 from the usage charges for those high volume customers. So for each of the 3 scenarios that we looked at, we were trying to say, what if you keep that overall amount of revenue from the residential customers the same, and then just restructure the rates, right? So that's kind of the concept there. So when you go from 2.4 million gallons of usage that you're billing up to, over 26 million, you've got to lower a rate. If you keep charging that $8.77 per 1,000 gallons plus that base charge, you're going to have a lot more revenues coming in. So the question then is, do you reduce the base fixed charge, or do you reduce the volumetric charge? And I will also just to back up and say, like most communities that charge for sewer based on usage still have some level of a base fixed charge, because some of your costs are fixed, and because it's also it promotes more revenue stability for the utility to have some revenues coming in as a fixed charge. So we looked at alternative 1 was keep that base fixed charge of $45.40 and then reduce that volume charge so that you're still getting the same amount of volumetric revenues from that 26 million gallons per year. So that's alternative 1. Alternative 2 was keep the $8.70 per 1,000 gallons and then reduce the base fixed charge. Again, trying to keep the total volume of residential revenues the same. But as you can see, that would cut the utilities' fixed revenues from the residential class from $318,000 a year to about $105,000. And then the third option was to again, halfway in between, where you're lowering the base charge and you're also lowering the volume charge. kind of meeting in the middle there. And then in terms of what that looks like on customer impacts, we've got 4 examples here. One is a lower than average user. Based on your water meter billing information, it looks like your average customer uses about 3,800 gallons per month. So this would be a customer that uses 2,000 gallons a month. So right now this customer is only paying the $45.40 per month. With any of these options where you're switching to partly being based on usage, then they would be charged for their 2,000 gallons per month at whatever rate you set for the volumetric rate. So with a very low volumetric rate, their bill would go up a little bit. If you shift more of or if you reduce the fixed charge and keep the volume charge higher, then they would see a pretty big decrease in their bill. And then alternative 3 is kind of a mid-range between those two. Example customer number 2 is that strictly average customer at 3,800 gallons per month. Again, they're not paying anything above the base charge right now. If you go to one of these other options, again, with alternative 1, if you keep that base charge the same and just reduce the volumetric charge, now they're paying the base charge, plus they're also paying for every gallon of water they use. So that their rate would go up a little bit. So there wouldn't be a big impact one way or the other on kind of your average customer. Example customer 3 is a large customer, and we're saying this is a customer that uses 7,000 gallons of water on average, but would have, let's say, a winter month where they use 2,000 or twice as much as that, so 14,000 gallons. So this customer might get some overage charges during the winter months, and we're showing an average monthly bill here. So that's, most months they pay the $45.40, and then they'd have one month where they'd be billed some overage. So this customer, again, since they're above the average, they would see their bills go up pretty substantially under some of these alternatives, depending on how you structure it. And then a very, very large customer. This is a customer who's using 15,000 gallons of water month by month. And we're assuming, so if they're typically using 15,000 gallons, then during the winter months, so during the summer months right now, everybody just pays the flat charge. During the winter months, a customer like this would be getting billed for 5,000 gallons over the base charge during those winter months. So that's reflected in that average monthly bill of $67.33. And this is one of the strange things, like if you keep that flat charge the same and just decrease that volumetric charge down to 80 cents, like under that first alternative, a customer in the very high range of water usage like this would see actually their bill go down because they'd only be paying the 80 cents for that additional usage or for all of their uses versus paying $8.77. But then if you go with a more of that charge weighted on the usage charge versus the fixed charge, that's where these larger customers would see an increase in their bill. So I guess the conclusion there is you probably you're not going to get the kind of impacts that were anticipated when this question was asked if you keep that fixed charge high and set the volume charge low. If you want to see some, I guess, more equitable rates for smaller versus larger customers, you'd want to go with something where you'd bring that base charge down and put more on the volumetric rate. But that, again, does have an impact on utility revenues and makes them more dependent on volume of use versus just being fixed and steady. So there's some trade-offs there. We would have to do a lot more analysis on this to really get a better idea of how this would impact your customers, because right now we don't know how much water or wastewater usage each customer has. So
right. I was just going to state, that these two these examples are purely hypothetical. We don't have the data available. We don't have the data to analyze at this point. It would, as we mentioned, it would be we'd have to do some pretty hefty analysis on every customer in the system, because everyone's use is different. So we don't know how many customers we're talking about might be larger. We just don't have that information right now, and that would be done. So it's just a matter of, is this something that, to continue to pursue or not at this point?
I have a question, I guess it's for you, but our city administrator, so currently now, are we measuring per customer the sewer wastewater usage?
Yes,
So, okay, so it's easy to identify,
yes,
okay.
if I'm understanding correctly, so anybody over 10,000 gallons,
I know
then
that
they get
Based on
charged.
the water.
Water
Based on
usage.
water.
Well, yeah,
We don't know how much is going in.
gotcha, yes, we have one commercial business that actually measures sewer discharge, and that's it, no residential customer does.
So help me understand, if I apologize if I'm sounding. Would that require new technology to do that?
No, so that's why it's the winter rate. Usually in the winter, you're not watering your lawn, so all the water you use is in your house, so it goes down the sewer. Or summer, most of the water is usually irrigation, so we don't charge anything over, it's just that flat rate. For the
The
sewer.
water's billed at what we actually use, but the sewer rate is determined by our average winter usage.
Correct, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But it's, yeah, the amount, they assume everything during winter is used inside the house and goes through the sewer system. The summer rate is mix of irrigation, household use, so it's hard to gauge.
And what do you guess of the number of hours it would take if we started to go to some of these per usage for staff time?
I don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah, in terms of calculating utility bills, I'm
Yeah.
assuming it would be a handful of hours working with Cassell to update the software,
Okay.
but I don't know the exact time frame.
Bernard?
Thank you, Mayor. So on the total annual revenues, it shows the 339, 316 under the current. Does that reflect the need for a 9 point, what is it? What kind of increase you guys are proposing? We need a 9.74% increase.
Right.
So that 339 reflects that.
No, we just, for simplification of this, we just use the current rates as the basis for this
Right,
analysis.
just to show what the impact of the change in the rate structure would be. We didn't, to apples to apples comparison we wanted to have, so we're not mixing, what today versus the future. So no, this is just under, the current rates.
Okay, but in the earlier report, did you make a proposal? I guess you did. You made a new proposal to say your base charge is going to be, I don't know, 50 something, and all these other things are going to change so we can get to that 9.7% increase. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
And I can't remember what that was, but ultimately we're gonna have to review that. Okay. Well, my second question is, so when we had this conversation in Gresham, because we didn't do winter water average for decades, but they finally decided to implement it. And one of the things that the sewer utility managers were very much advocating for is say, look, we understand this fairness argument, like the more sewage you send us, the higher you pay. Those guys who don't send us a lot of sewage should pay less. Get it? It's very clear. It's very simple to understand. But the fixed charges that a sewer utility has to deal with are very real. So whether someone is using zero, you've got snowbirds who leave for the summer, we leave for the winter, and they come back and they would get, if we implemented, say, alternate 2, they would be paying a very low fixed charge for that time while they were gone. And there's like, is that, are now we underfunding the fixed needs, fixed cost needs of the utility? So I just want to be clear, do we have a sense on what the fixed charge should be out of the gate? It seems like that's something that would come out of cost of service analysis, says you need to be collecting this much to address your fixed needs as a utility, and this other stuff, which increases with operational. I assume the more sewage you're treating, there's more chemicals to use. There's these things have this operational impact. You see what I'm asking? How comfortable do we feel with what our base charge should be if we do this winter water average usage fee?
Right, and I would say, just based on our original proposals, that alternative one here, where we keep the base charge, at kind of at the level it is, and obviously with an increase we're proposing, but based on our analysis, you do need that fixed revenue. We would say it, because a lot of your costs in the sewer are fixed. So I would say, yeah, if we're going to switch that alternative one, might be the way to go. But the other question then is, how does it impact different customers? Because maybe some outcomes are not, anticipated or desirable by going to that. For example, that super really high usage customer that would actually see a decrease in the bill. That might not be what the outcome that's desired when switching to a rate structure like this. So, yeah, there a lot of balancing of the different objectives for the sewer rates and the utility overall.
Okay, so can I ask a follow-up, Mayor?
Yeah,
Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, you guys are saying we need a fixed base rate of 54 based on the operational needs of this utility. Is that what I'm hearing? Or whatever you were in the last staff report, whatever that number was. There's no wiggle room for a user charge?
Well, that is one of those good questions, right? Where it's I don't know that there's one right number where you say this is the exact amount that you need from fixed charges. Because a lot of your charges, you could argue that most of the charges are fixed, that they don't fluctuate that much with the amount of volume that you're treating. So, we could take a closer look at that.
Yeah. I would just add, though, this analysis we put together, just these examples, this is, again, for residential customers only. And for the non-residential customers, they do pay, a much higher share based on their use than the fixed charge. So, that's part of the overall look at the mix of fixed revenues versus the user charge revenues. We have to look at the whole picture, so that includes the non-residential.
thank you. Happy?
I was just gonna say, I felt like this discussion about charging for sewer usage really stemmed from Bernard's point that he wanted to incentivize, conservation. And what we're seeing here is, from the recommendation of consultants we've hired, is they're recommending that we have to keep the base charge high because fixed costs are high. But with alternate one, where we keep the fixed costs high, we actually see users that are using a lot of water actually see a reduction in their overall bill, which is contrary to the goal of incentivizing conservation. So I just, in the sake of time, I wonder if we just want to move past this and say it doesn't seem like it makes sense to implement that and then just stay with our current billing structure.
Yeah.
It would make my life a lot easier.
Yes.
I think it was a great question.
Yeah.
And I think that I really appreciate the depth of knowledge and that's gone into explaining this to us, because it's very complicated.
Yeah.
But, I don't see the value in necessarily a whole lot more time than that.
I don't know.
It doesn't seem like it needs to go also why we had the discussion to begin with.
Right, I agree. All right, so we're good with moving on.
So I guess next steps, how does council want to move forward with this, knowing that budget's coming up here in a couple weeks?
Go ahead, Tiffany. So as far as the first chart of the for lowering the debt service, I would like to see us go for alternative 3, which would lower the debt service just slightly, but with the caveat that it would only be for, how long do you think it'll be before we know we'll be settled with the new person running our wastewater
Well, so that one's completely separate. That's water, yeah.
So we have, okay, yes, okay, I apologize then. Yeah, then, I'm happy with either 2 or 3. I mean, to me, it doesn't seem like it's that ginormous of a. Yeah. Of a leap. Right, and I like alternative 2 only because I was on council then, and I remember this very clearly that we even started collecting money a year in advance because we wanted to save the people money. We wanted to pay off that loan like 15 years early. And by doing it the way we had it planned out, by paying it off in 2038, we're actually saving the people over $470,000 by not keeping the loan. So that's just my 2 bits on it. Happy?
And I appreciate that kind of background when we had this discussion last time. And I guess I appreciated Bernard's comments that we have this long-term debt to pay for a long-term investment. And so you have all of us that are paying that utility bill now that are footing the bill for the people that are gonna benefit from it, long after we're gone. So I think I understand that, I don't like debt. I don't like paying all that interest either, but I feel like it unfairly burdens the residents now. And it really benefits the people that are gonna be able to utilize the system long in the future. And if we go with alternative 2, we're looking at a 21.7% increase in the average customer's water bill, or 12% if we go with alternative 3. But if we reduce the debt service, we saved a significant amount of money by making those payments ahead of time. But average customers only gonna see a 2.3% increase.
I don't see though, just one more plug in there where we have the option to extend that because that was what the council agreed on then. That's what was gonna happen. I mean, I would really like to go back and look at the minutes of that because even the current mayor that was then advocated that be a line item on our bill, so it would be a charge that ended. It wasn't to do anything. It was either that or we were gonna have to raise our rates to pay off this loan, Either way, we were gonna pay for it because the city couldn't, right? So we did a loan and that's how it got paid for. So, Keller?
I feel like we're not even thinking about an incredibly disenfranchised part of our community that live on an extremely fixed cost. And I listened to various members of this council argue and complain about a $4 increase. And now we're having this huge discussion that's looking at a 21% increase or a 12% increase per month in their average fees. We have to be respectful of those that are on an incredibly fixed budget and cannot afford to make these huge substantial increases.
Bernard?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I guess I second that perspective in that, a lot of folks are struggling with the inflation we've seen over the last several years. We have an opportunity here to meet all our financial obligations and dramatically reduce the monthly impact of the city's water bill on all these customers. Again, without we're making our debt payments. That option 1 keeps us completely whole. Now I will reserve my remark that if council made a long term, I would love to see the language and how they voted for the fee change when they did it. But unless it's somehow tied to the bond, the debt that we borrowed from the lender, I'd like to think we have the flexibility to manage it as we feel is most appropriate. And so, in the spirit of compromise, my first option is alternative 1. My second one would be alternative 2, and the last would be to maintain the $22 and go with the current, that payment plan. So that would be my hope.
I think you're a little bit backwards. I think you're saying 1, 3, and then 2, because 2 is the one that
Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you. Councilmember Pruitt, that's right. 1, 3, and 2. Yep.
Okay, and Baker, what are you?
1, 3, 2.
1, 3, 2? You're writing us down or shall we not? Oh,
Well, I am
1, 3, 2.
strongly in favor of 1.
Yeah, the 1,
Yeah.
3,
1, 2.
1.
You had
One.
one, but you had 2 fingers up.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I'm just raising my hand.
For 1, so we got 4 at 1. What are you, Marianne?
By saying this, what does that do for us? What are you trying to get? I'm confused. What? We all don't agree on the same one, so what?
Would be majority.
Well, we need to raise rates and I need to present something to council in the
And
future.
we're only discussing this, is that we're not voting on nothing, it's the next steps.
Correct. So, yeah.
Bring a resolution forward.
Correct. Next steps would to take this information, work with Trilogy and present a final rate analysis
So we're
for
trying to just give
approval.
them some direction as far
Yeah.
as which of these options we want to have. them
Yes,
move
to
forward.
officially put in front of council for approval. I think so far what I'm hearing is option 1 to cut the debt fee. Nobody seems to be in favor of a 39% rate increase and maybe look at phasing that in over the next 3 to 4 years instead of doing 40% increase in 1 year.
40% on what?
The
The actual water rate increase, the water usage rate.
That's the second chart.
this is a first start.
No.
Yeah, if I could jump in, you're talking about the 39% is on the operational rate. Right, so that would be phasing that in and then either keeping the debt service rate the same or dropping it down a little bit. I think that was the question raised on option 2. Could you phase that in over 3 years?
You have a question?
Yeah, okay, so I'm confused. I thought that we were, we were automatically proposing a $10.52 rate, increase for the operating portion. That there's like, to me, it seems like there's no discussion on that because it's straight across, it's a $10.52 fee according to this charge.
That's the
According to
39.9%.
39%, yes.
Yeah, so. Oh, okay, and then you're talking about phasing it in.
Correct. So, I mean, so that's the average usage. So it's right now it's $2.50 per 1,000 gallons. So that $10 is the average. So the rate would go up to whatever I think Bernard mentioned, 372 or something.
372.
Yeah.
But I think one of the options was keep the debt service where we have it so we can pay off the loan a little sooner, but so that people don't feel a 21% increase in 1 year, phasing in that 39.9%
I see.
rate change over 3 or 4 years.
Mhm. Yeah, I'll say yes, the water fund is healthy compared to everything else, but it's still not enough. I mean, we should have probably closer to $1 million because stuff's not cheap. I mean,
I feel like we have 2 questions.
Yeah.
We have a question on operating costs, and then we also have a question separately on debt service. I feel like, is that, I mean.
correct.
Because these are in columns and you're asking us to pick a column of
Yeah.
choice and that it's kind of like goes hand in hand, so. So now you're saying. Not to increase it to the $10 more, $10.52. That would be the 39%. Is that
Correct.
you're asking? Okay, I think we have 2 questions that we need to answer, not just one. I feel like we should ask what we want to do with the operation costs and then ask separately what we want to do with the debt service. Because I feel like it's two separate issues, because these are just like clumped together. I might be okay with doing the 39% if we go down on the debt service. I don't know. I mean.
Can I just ask a question? What are we paying as far as rate on that debt? Do you have any idea?
It's really low.
The interest rate? Oh, I have no idea.
Is it like 3%?
3 or 4, I would think. It might be even less.
My
I
point
mean,
that
it's.
brings up though is average inflation is around 3% a year.
Yeah.
So if you're talking the 3% interest, the debt service is really almost insignificant because the money that we borrow, we're paying so close to what the average inflation rate is, you know what I mean? So I go back to advocating for alternate one. Because we're paying very, very little on interest for a long-term investment with our infrastructure.
And see, I'd be okay with that, but I would like to see, you know, the debt service just a little bit higher, maybe somewhere in between the 1260 and the.
Okay, so we got
30.
ones in your, and then I don't like it raising, but I would like to see the language about how that was done on council for that loan. And why the verbiage in there, to make sure that we're not doing anything that we shouldn't be doing, but I could easily go to 3. That's just where I'm at. Mary Ann?
I
We can
could,
move on, so he has a.
I could usually go to 3, but I too prefer the paying it off early. That was the whole purpose of this loan. So, I would have to go with 3 and then 2.
Denise?
Just to hear it out loud and for the community, what is the process for folks who need to apply for assistance? Is it only seniors? Is it for water or just power? We have
It's for power only.
power. only.
Yeah, we have
And
one
it's
for
not
power.
age, it's income.
Oh, so we do have assistance
We-
for power only, but not water.
There's the sewer one
The
as well.
Sewer, yeah.
Yes,
Oh, and sewer.
correct.
Mhm.
But nothing for water.
Bernard, do you have a quick question?
Yeah, I just, maybe in the effort to simplify this, I initially proposed that maybe we should consider phasing in the 39% increase on the operational revenue, increase. I will set that aside and say, let's just leave it at 39% if I could persuade council to reduce that debt payment and pay on the original timeline. I just want to say that.
I would like to know how you use people's money that's supposed to go for debt. How are you gonna use it for other things besides the debt? That's the reason why there's a line item. You know,
What-
is that money was to be used for the debt?
But that's what he said. I don't think he's arguing. that.
No, I don't, but
No, I'm not, yeah. If we don't collect it, then obviously it's not, then it
goes away.
stays in the consumer's pockets.
But if you collect it, then you should be spending it on what you're telling the people that
Yes,
money.
again, but no argument there. Yeah, absolutely.
So it is 2 separate questions.
Yeah. So I think the first question is, do we want to phase in the 39%? And I would say yes.
Everybody in favor of phasing in the 39%?
Yeah.
Yes?
No, I mean, I guess I was really, I mean, I'm not gonna get in the way of that, but I
Right.
guess if we're gonna go with alternative 2 or 3, then yes, I'd be in favor of phasing that in. But if we're gonna go with alternative 1, then I would say there's no need to do that.
Correct,
Yes. Okay.
correct.
And then the second question would be.
The debt service.
Doing the debt service, and I think we probably need.
I think we need more
research.
clarification for debt
We need
service.
Research on the original.
Yeah.
Personally.
I feel like we're getting close to budget time and we need to get an answer
Yeah.
for these guys so they can give you some
Mhm.
numbers, right?
Yeah, I mean,
is there a
and
way-
I can always build the budget for the rates as is, and then come back and we can do a budget adjustment or amendment and go from there. So I can
Yeah.
work with what our current rate structure is and go from there.
So the timeline is not as, we got.
I was hoping to get it all settled to present in this budget, but it's not gonna happen.
Yeah. It's too much.
Fair enough.
All right, ready to move on, everybody?
All right. Thanks, Christy. Thanks,
Thank you,
Eric.
guys.
I'll follow up with you
Thank
tomorrow.
you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Appearances of interested citizens to share on a variety of perspectives of issues facing our community. No, I don't have any, do you?
I didn't receive anything. No emails, nothing.
Public hearings,
No public hearings tonight.
All right, approved letters to Hood River County School District.
Okay, presented for approval are 2 letters to be sent to the Hood River County School District Board. The first letter states a concern regarding the switch to blended classes at the Cascade Locks Elementary School. The second letter is, the first letter is authored by Counselor Keller. The second letter is authored by Mayor Wood. This letter states a concern regarding lack of representation from Cascade Locks when decisions are made by the board. A copy of both letters are attached for review. Background information regarding the representation letter is attached for reference. Council may approve both letters, only one or neither. If a letter is not approved, the individual author of the letter may submit the letter to the school board as an individual resident of Cascade Locks. They may not reference their elected position, connection to the city or city council in the letter. Options are for approval of both, one or none.
So number one is dated April 24th. And number 2 is dated April 28th, just for reference, so we're on the same page.
Just speaking, I think we need to pick one fight. If you're going out with 2 fights, that they're not gonna listen to us. So if you wanna go and make the fight for a representative on the school board, then let's make that fight. If you wanna fight against the blended classroom and the inequities that brings to the students, then let's have that fight. I do not suggest we go with 2 fights, one fight. I don't care which fight it is, one fight.
Bernard.
I would,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
We need to make a
we
motion.
need a motion, sorry. We need a motion. Sorry, guys.
Let's see, brown both of them back.
You gotta make a motion.
I make a motion to approve both of them.
You have a second.
I second.
Okay, Denise second. Mary Ann motion. Bernard discussion.
Thank you. So I concur with Councilmember Keller's comment on picking one and focusing on it. And if I were to get my way, I would recommend or suggest we focus on the first one regarding the funding and the blended classes conversation. I read both of them. I read the comment from the school official, and of the 2, I feel like that one, the ex officio is of less value in the bigger scope of things than the blended classes conversation. So that's my first comment. And the second one is, the truth is, I don't have kids, so I don't know a lot about blended classes. And it's hard for me to make a judgment on that. I had a conversation with a friend recently, and they were talking about how they had a kid in Montessori, and a Montessori program is basically a blended class. You have older kids and younger kids, and there's a synergy that happens there. I happened to go to a Montessori, in Texas, and it was a really wonderful experience. And so I'm hesitant to make a value judgment on that, on whether that is indeed a step in the wrong direction. And the second thing is, if it is a step in the wrong direction and we're advocating for more resources, I always have struggled when, a constituent or a policy, someone who's aggrieved to a policy says, I don't like this problem, but I'm not going to tell you how to fix it. If the council says we don't like blended class and we come to that conclusion, I think we should come up with some ideas, or at least offer our support to the school board on how we can help them fix the resource challenge. But to not give something to that effect doesn't sit well with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise.
I will concede to the body if they want to go with both or just one. And if we did go with just one, I do think the cutting of staff is more of an issue than the blended classroom, in my personal opinion of 28 years in K to university education. But I won't supersede the families and educators working now. I do have some edits to the letter if possible to share, but I would make the friendly amendment of the, for language that isn't triggering and inflammatory to possibly say the council writes with frustration.
Yeah, can we wait until we
Okay.
decide what letter and then we can go to that piece of
Okay.
editing?
Okay,
Okay. And Keller.
The PTO has suggested an enormous array of suggestions to the superintendent. So if that's your concern, the issues this, we might not be advocating for a specific solution, but we're part of this fight. We are not the fight. And the PTO is coming up with a variety of solutions. Secondly, my son was incredibly disserviced in blended classes. You get a specific chunk of time at the elementary school to do instruction in math. So let's say math, you get an hour and a half. My son would receive 45 minutes of instruction at his second grade level, while the third graders would be doing some worksheet task, and then they would receive 45 minutes of their instruction. So in theory, you would make it 2/3, a little less through the standard curriculum that a full third grade class would be going through. So yes, pie in the sky, going to like a super crazy fun charter school, that's not gonna happen. We have to address what's happening now and address the inequities that exist for those students that is in Cascade Blocks.
Happy?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if I had to pick between, I agree, I think it's important to pick and focus our efforts. And if I had to pick between the two, I think I'd focus more on the blended classrooms issue versus the representation in Cascade Blocks. My experience working with the Ms. Wrights has been nothing but, she's been very responsive. If anybody wants to get in touch with her, her email address is on the district website. She wants to hear from residents. She comes to Cascade Locks Elementary School regularly, and she definitely wants to hear from those of us in the community. She may not be here from the community, but the way that the map's drawn, she's we have a representative, whether they live in Cascade Locks, it's representing west side of Hood River, or somebody from the west side of Hood River that's representing Cascade Locks. Either way, we're gonna be feeling underrepresented. And I will say that she's done a lot of outreach in our community to be, hear from us, and she wants our input, so.
Tiffany, did you have anything? I mean, forward.
I feel like we can do both, but whatever.
Marion, yeah.
I already said my piece.
The only,
Do both.
and
Because
they're
two different things.
they're both different topics, and the only reason why I came up with the letter that I did is because I had made a public comment at the school board meeting, and they sent an email to me, which that's attached, and I wanted to be able to respond, because I think it's very important that we're represented and that we have a vote when it comes to cutting budgets and cutting staff and all that. Where this person, Chrissy, the chair Chrissy, I'm not saying anything about her. I don't even know her. I don't have any kids that go to these schools either. But what I'm saying is that I feel strongly that we must have a vote at the table. But I'm all for whatever the parents and them want to do, because I think I was there at the meeting where the superintendent threatened to close the school. And I think they came back with doing blended classrooms to make everybody feel like they won something. That's my opinion, but I think that they're all different issues, but whatever.
I just wanted to clarify, it's my understanding, I believe Janice is on.
She's on budget, yeah.
So we do have somebody in the community that has.
This is her last year. And in case you cannot serve another term. Yeah. So go ahead, Denise.
no, I concede to whether or not we send one or two, and as was mentioned, I believe, no individual person is is unable, we are able to send a letter and not say, this is my own personal
Right,
opinion, right?
right, right.
So anybody can
Yes.
do that as well.
All right, so are we gonna, we got a motion and we have a second. Let's go around and say which letter. Oh, or you
So we'll
got,
do the letter first before any edits. or-
yeah, that way you know what letter is gonna have to be edited, because you may not have to edit it.
Exactly.
Okay,
Okay, Bernard, you're first. Which letter?
Or both.
Or both?
You're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry. I only want one letter and I would like to be the blended schools letter. My one qualifier, I appreciate what Councilmember Keller presented. I would like us to review those PTO ideas and include that. Say, we support these types of initiatives to make the budget whole, and so we can ensure our kids are getting a proper education. I would like the letter to include something to that extent.
Denise.
if it sounds like the body is recommending one, so I choose the letter about cutting teachers at the school, and would like to offer some edits that is really the trouble.
Tiffany. I'm still gonna stick with both. Both? Keller.
Just because I haven't scanned the game, I say one.
Yours, right here.
Letter one.
Yeah, letter one says.
I'm going letter one, and I like Seeger's recommendations that we include those recommendations that PTO's made to the superintendent in the audit.
And Marianne, both. And I think they're both important, but I'm gonna go with two.
Can I ask a question?
So, well, there's 4 on one.
Yep, 4 for one, 2 votes for both, 1 vote for letter 2.
Keller. What's your question?
Says if the letter is not approved, the individual author of the letter may submit the letter to the school board as an individual resident of Cascade Locks.
Yep, without the Cascade Locks
Yes.
letterhead, yep.
So my question to you is, when you presented as the mayor of Cascade Locks.
Yes, I did.
So how is that different?
It isn't, I wanted it on the letterhead. I could have responded to the email, but.
No, when you went and presented in front of the school board,
I presented as Brenda Wood.
You never said mayor.
I can't recall if I did or not. It wouldn't really make a difference.
That's my question.
Yeah.
'Cause
But I gave my personal email and all that. To be honest, I don't remember because I have been doing so much within the community.
No, I'm just,
So,
because
if
I
the-
don't know if there's a difference between a mayor and a council. Because it's my understanding by this paragraph, I can submit this letter on my own
You
behalf.
can. I can. We can.
That's not my question.
We don't have to have the council's permission to submit a letter on our own without the letterhead. What I was wanting for my letter was just this letterhead. That's the only thing I wanted different. I could submit the letter how it is.
But I think Councilor Keller's point is whether it's a letter or public comment, you presenting as a resident is fine.
Right.
You coming up to the podium saying, I am Brenda Wood, Mayor of Cascade Locks, here's what I'm saying, that should not be approved without council's approval. You, by stating that, by de facto, are representing the city and council.
And they respond, and their email,
May I
responded, they
speak with my
said.
hand up?
Yeah, it's to Brenda. They didn't say to Mayor Wood, so I'm pretty sure I didn't put it by public comment when I put it in. It was under my personal email, which is what's darkened out, otherwise you would see my city email. So,
No, that's fine. I just didn't know if
It's
there's a
really
difference
not
between
that-
mayor and the council.
There's,
yeah,
no,
go ahead.
Mayor.
This has come up several times in the last 2 years.
Mhm.
It is in our documents. It is on my email. I am speaking on behalf of myself and not as my position as city council. Anytime I have been at a restaurant and somebody overheard me
Okay, you
speaking,
don't need to yell at
Okay,
me.
no, but my
So you
point
guys
is-
talk about talking nicely and
Okay.
stuff, so
my point
please.
is, we have documents that say you must say, I am speaking on behalf of myself and not my position with the city. It's in our documents.
No,
And it is, but, and I'll find it to refer back to it. And so I'm hoping that this council will continue with that because it is important to say that because we are carrying this position. And I've often said, today I'm wearing my professor hat, today I'm wearing my nonprofit hat.
okay,
So, okay,
we need to go
and
on.
when we're ready for editing, I'd like to share.
Happy to
No, no, I'm sorry, I promise, I'll be quick. I was just gonna say, given what you just shared, Mayor, I'm wondering if the second letter, since you were responding to an email that was addressed to you directly, wouldn't it be more appropriate just to respond to them, you know?
It's perfectly fine with me. I don't wanna fight and argue with you guys over a letter to the school board. Trust me, there's better fights to be had.
I agree, so.
So I'm good with whatever you guys are.
If there's substantial edits that we need to make, it's not, the meeting's tomorrow night, so.
I just have a brief couple of words.
I just have a couple of things to change on it too.
So how do you want the edits done for the letter?
Did we even
No.
vote on it?
We haven't voted yet.
Yeah.
So
So
the current motion is for both letters. It would need to be edited or
To the one-
amended to the single letter. And then if council wants to vote over every exact word, we can vote.
Motion to put both of them in.
Okay. Or if it's approved, I can get comments from everybody to put a new draft together for the mayor to sign tomorrow. But the bulk of it is written, the point of it is written, the context is there. Adding points about PTO options I could grab from Counselor Keller and some grammatical or other editing from Counselor Pruitt and Counselor Emily Baker.
So what's the current
You
motion
wanna
that we
rescind
vote down
the
or
motion?
change?
I made a
Was
motion.
moved and seconded to
do both.
accept both layers.
Mary Ann made the motion for both letters and you made the second, Denise.
Okay,
So
The-
that's the motion,
So
let's
rescind?
vote on it, and then if it
Yeah.
doesn't go.
So let's vote. The motion is for both letters. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
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 The new motion.
Wait, can we do roll call? 'Cause I'm not.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor, roll call vote.
Councilmember Happy,
Okay.
Councilmember Bump,
Yes.
Councilmember Pruitt,
Yes.
Councilmember Seeger,
No.
Councilmember Emmerling Baker,
no,
Councilmember Keller,
No.
and Mayor Wood.
No.
So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 no's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 no.
Now we need a new.
I move to approve, the letter from Mr. Keller drafted dated April 24th.
second,
All right, do you want to do roll call again?
and we have
Probably.
discussion.
Oh, yeah, you can have discussion.
I just wanted to share in the first line to strike lack of foresight and budgetary irresponsibility and change that to budgetary deficits. So it reads, the council writes with frustration and sadness upon learning that budgetary deficits may lead to teacher cuts at Cascade Locks Elementary School requiring blended classes. And then continue, that's all. I felt some of the language might be triggering defense from the other people. And then in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th stanza, I recommend instead of privileged parents in the community are taking their students out, to say some parents in the community.
Or concerned.
Or some,
Concerned, yeah.
I don't want to imply parents who aren't doing that aren't concerned.
Yeah.
The reason why I use privilege is to right at the extreme discrepancies that exist between those that have the means to take their students elsewhere versus the students that are left here.
I think that might be implied, but
Darn first.
some homeschool folks may not have financial privilege, but.
Okay, Bernard,
Okay, yeah, I was just gonna maybe before Councilmember Baker went into her edits, I was gonna support what the city administrator said for Councilmember Baker to submit her comments to him. He talked to Councilmember Keller about the PTO stuff and have him create maybe an updated letter. And then again, just you and the mayor work through it, and then the mayor signs it. I'm okay with that process to getting moving past this agenda item instead of us kind of going line by line.
yeah,
I agree.
so Baker and Pruitt.
Well,
Comments?
I know two counselors had specific edits and then adding some PTO options that presented. And if other counselors of the mayor like edits, send them my way.
Can move,
Need a vote.
no vote.
How is this gonna be done by 6?
Get me your stuff tonight.
Okay.
By 6 tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, get me your edits tonight.
So do you want roll call once we do it? Okay, all in favor?
Councilmember Happy,
Hi.
Councilmember Bump,
No.
Councilmember Pruitt,
Yes.
Councilmember Seeger,
Aye.
Councilmember Emmerling Baker,
Aye.
Councilmember Keller,
Hi.
and Mayor Wood.
No.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes.
So it passes with 5 yeses and 2 noes.
Yep, please get me your edits tonight, Counselor Keller. If there's some kind of document that lists PTO presentations, please send it my way.
I believe I'm good match.
Thank you.
All right, approve ordinance 461, the ARU electric meter requirement.
All right, staff proposes adding language to ordinance number 441, which become ordinance 461 to take away the risk of an unpaid utility account affecting a separate living unit being served by only 1 meter. When the city's first ADU was built, staff contacted other cities with an electrical utility and they used the same language. The city attorney has reviewed and approved the amendment. A copy of the ordinance was provided to City Council and posted at City Hall 7 days prior to the reading, meeting the requirements to read the ordinance in title only with substantial changes or substances noted. As long as no council member objects, the ordinance may be adopted in a single reading if the title is read in full twice with noting the substantial changes and is approved by unanimous decision of the entire council. So first item, does council want it read in title only or in full? What was that?
You guys want to title?
Title. Okay, all
Title
right.
only, please.
Okay, I will read it twice. If the vote is 7-0, then it will pass. So ordinance 461, an ordinance relating to the municipal light and power system, regulating the use, sale, and prices of electrical current, defining security deposits and offenses, repealing ordinance number 440. The substantial change is one of them is in section 2 definitions, FF, point of delivery. The point of delivery is that point of a customer's premises or public right-of-way designated by the city and agreed to by the customer where the city facilitates and those of the customer are connected. All the equipment on the customer side shall be belong to and be the responsibility of the customer, except meters and metering equipment and any other equipment provided by the city. Each self-contained living unit, a unit containing private sleeping, cooking, and restroom facilities shall have an individual meter. There is a removal of a grandfather transition for customers. That is in section 4, utility deposit, subsection E. E1, sorry, E1. And that is it. So again, This is ordinance number 461, an ordinance relating to the municipal light and power system, regulating the use, sale, and prices of electrical current, defining security deposits and offenses, repealing ordinance number 440. Changes include section 2 definitions, FF, point of delivery. The new definition, point of delivery, is that point on a customer's premises or public right-of-way designated by the city and agreed to by customer where the city facilitates and those facilities and those of the customer are connected. All the equipment on the customer side shall belong to and be the responsibility of the customer except meters and metering equipment and any other equipment provided by the city. Each self-contained living unit, a unit containing a private sleeping, cooking, and restroom facility shall have individual meter. Also changed, substantial change is section 4, utility security deposit, subsection E, grandfather transition customers has been removed. Okay. So again, the point of this is to protect not only the city, but as well as tenants within the city. There's a big push nationwide for ARUs as well as in Cascade Locks. Protect the tenants in case the main property owner does not pay their utility bill.
Do we have a motion?
I move to approve ordinance 461.
Second.
Please second. Happy? Any discussion? Oh,
I have a question on point of delivery. Or is this telling the citizens that if they have a house and they rent out a bedroom, they have to have a separate meter?
No, this is for a complete separate unit, a whole living quarters. That's a bedroom, a kitchen, a bathroom. Completely disconnected from the
That's
rest.
what I took it as, but I got to thinking that it says.
No, this would be a separate, for lack of a better term,
Separate
outbuilding or a defined duplex. If it fits within the land use codes and they build a proper duplex, that would count as well. It'd be a completely separate living quarters.
You see something in the language that was ambiguous?
I read it and I read it and I read it and it just, something just didn't sit right and I don't know what it was.
any other? Tiffany?
So, on page 9, when you remove that grandfather transition, you went in section 4 there, you went from number 5 to number 1. I'm not really sure if that's what you intended to do.
Wasn't that, what the section you removed was one, wasn't it?
Was E1 and then and then 2 underneath the section E. You just renamed 1, but you've already got numbers 1 through 5, and then you go to 1, so it's kind of
Let's section E now.
but section E's been deleted.
Oh, I think that was a typo. Section E is still in the document. It's just section 1 within section E that was removed.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So
Yep.
still section E.
E2
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just E1.
That just didn't get-
Yep. Sorry.
Is that all you had, Tiffany?
No, and then so we've taken the grandfather clause wasn't for the ARUs or something, but ARUs, that.
Correct. That's completely different. But I think to your question you're getting at is current ARUs that do not have one, we are not forcing them to put one in. This is for all new construction.
Okay, but it's not noted in this document anywhere, so how do we make sure that that's codified?
Gotcha.
That's a question.
Yes, I don't have an answer for you at the moment.
How do we make sure what?
How do we make sure that he's saying that it doesn't affect people who currently have ARU, sorry, I'm gonna use the right alphabet soup here. Won't affect current ARUs, it'll only affect new builds. How, it doesn't say, that's not here in this document, so how do we get?
Well,
this
we
document?
only have one and they already have a deposit. It's already separate, so I mean, I don't know what the,
Well, because there's another family that I know that has, not a separate,
not legally, they don't.
not a separate house, but they do have a livable unit in their basement. I don't know.
Well, if it's a livable unit and it's not. If it was done illegally and they were to make it legal, they would have to pay a deposit.
Okay, but this is not just talking about a deposit, it's talking about basically putting it.
Well, yeah, and putting in a meter. If they were to do it legally, they would put in a new meter.
Okay,
So yeah, there is no defined language stating that current ARUs that don't have a meter aren't required to do it.
And if they're operating as an ARU and the city doesn't know it and the county doesn't know it, then it's probably not legal.
I'd like to see the name of the place, but I don't want to, not in public, so I guess I'll talk to you about it later. And then that means that if there's nobody, if they decide to no longer rent out that unit, we're still gonna have a fee to pay.
Correct. Yep.
All right, Bernard.
Thank you, Mayor. So I think I'm asking a very similar question to what Council Member Bump asked on the room rental setup. But it sounds like the city administrator gave a different answer to her than he did to Councilmember Pruitt. Councilmember Pruitt, did you ask that same question that Mary Ann asked on email? And I got CC'd somehow?
Correct. Yes. And I thought I just gave the same answer. Did I not?
It didn't, that's not how I read it, but I'm gonna assume that one you gave Councilmember Bump is the accurate answer.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Then
which
that's all I
I did
had.
confirm with Attorney Cleveland that it would
Okay.
be separate full living
A
quarters.
full living quarter, exactly, because a room doesn't have a kitchen and all the other facilities. Right, okay, thank you, that's all I had.
So if you have a room with a bathroom, say a master bedroom, and you put a little fridge and a microwave in it, is that considered a kitchen then?
No,
No,
kitchen
okay.
includes
So it's like where you got
a
the plumbing
sink and
all
yeah.
that.
yeah.
Okay, just want to make it clear. Tiffany, do you have a question?
No, I would like the document to say what you just said, that it was separate. What did you just say?
It says here, each self-contained living unit containing private sleeping, cooking, and restroom facilities.
Where
To have individual meters FF.
Yeah.
So self-contained equals separate.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Legalese, why can't we just speak English? Or Latin or whatever.
All right, do we have any more discussion? All right, we're gonna take, done a motion and we've done a second, and then we've had discussion. So all in favor of ordinance number 461, the ARU electric meter requirement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Everybody said yay, no opposed.
So this ordinance will be in effect in 30 days.
This is because I had a discussion with Kathy Woosley, that this is completely doing away with 440, right? That we're doing a completely new one.
Yeah.
And this is the ordinance.
Correct.
Yeah.
It is for at least for record keeping and going back and researching, full repeal and replace is much cleaner.
Yes. All right. So now we have approved letter of support for Blue Mountain Network.
Okay, so Blue Mountain Networks, provider of internet and phone service in Cascade Locks, reached out to us to provide this letter. They are applying for a Broadband Equity Access and Development Funding, BEAD for short, to build broadband infrastructure in Hood River County School District. The funding originates from the federal government via the bipartisan infrastructure law and filtered through the state of Oregon Business Oregon Department. Links were provided for more information. Blue Mountain Networks provided the template for the letter. Staff moved it to city letterhead. Staff did not have time to fact check the letter. However, staff does not dispute any of the actions or the accomplishments listed in the letter. As I stated in my email to Councilor Pruitt, typically I do review them, and I've really never had any issues with these letters of support other organizations. I do know there's not a great history of people interacting with Blue Mountain and their perception within the community. So that's why I made that statement. I mean, I'm not disputing it. I wanted to be able to double check what they're saying, given their history and the fact they are overdue on franchise fees to the city by almost 2 years. But that's it. So I mean, yes, I want to see internet improved in Cascade Locks and the school district, but we as a city have our own issues with Blue Mountain Networks.
Your motion,
I move to approve the letter of support from Blue Mountain Networks as presented.
all right, second. And seconded by Pruitt. Any discussion? Bernard first. No.
Well, I don't know if this is appropriate, but I'm just learning about them being 2 years behind on their franchise fees. And I can't help but hear that and think that we should use this as a small point of leverage to say, look, we're supportive of the work you're doing with the school district, expanding the broadband, but we would like you to bring your franchise fees in out of arrears in the next 30 days, and our letter of support will be contingent on that. I don't know if that feels icky or not, but part of me, I'm disappointed to learn that they're 2 years behind. I mean, we're a budgetary tight city. Franchise fees are part of our general fund. I find that unacceptable. I don't want to support this letter unless they're up on they're current on their franchise fees.
How much would that be, Jordan?
It's a couple $1,000s or-ish. It's not a huge amount. I mean,
Okay.
and you know, this might be more information than needed to be shared in public. We're not the only city. I've had conversations with other city managers. We're not the only ones.
And then there is a correction that needs to be made, that I noted in the, 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraph. It should be has instead of had. Has prepared them well to undertake this important project.
Denise,
Thank you. Just a quick typo in second paragraph, there's a little one. Unless that's at the end of project, the last word. And then, it is for to build infrastructure in the Hood River County School District, so. I wanna support this even though they're behind to us, because I wanna support that for the school district.
any other questions or discussion?
Does anybody know what they're actually trying to do?
So I looked up BEAD, and it's a federal infrastructure program, and I think, and then it looks like it's determined by the state. So the money is federal, they send the money to the state, and the state determines what project fits their parameters. So, and there's an interesting map that I loaded up on the one of the pages that shows, I mean, they have everybody's house, whether or not they have internet, or if they have high speed or broadband, or what they have, so they're pretty detailed. It's pretty scary, all the information they have on
I
us.
think the installation of broadband is either undergrounding or attaching to our poles of physical cable to get to the community, if I'm understanding correctly.
It says in here. Broadband. Well, and fiber networks, and we already have, that's already established in our community. So is this better suited? Like, I don't, that's my question, is like, It's already in our community.
I don't know that all of the Cascade Locks has it,
Yeah.
only certain areas in Cascade Locks are eligible to get fiber, yeah.
Correct, yeah.
I stand corrected, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I would think that everybody would have fiber by now, but they
Not
don't.
everybody does.
You got another
No,
question?
I just, well, and it's a Hood River County School District, so I hope that there's emphasis on Cascade Locks.
Yeah, they didn't-
It's just, I mean, it's just district, so we all have our PTSD when dealing with.
Yeah.
So all discussion and questions are done. Let's vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Bernard is nay and everyone else is yay. So 6-1. Approved letter of support for Blue Mountain Network passes 6-1. All right, approved non-residential deposit procedures.
At the April 14th meeting, council adopted resolution 1512, increasing the amount of deposit required for non-residential utility accounts. There was a debate regarding the length of time required to have the deposit on file. Council requested more research on the dollar amounts of our largest electrical users, attaches the list of our top 20 users and the amount billed for the month of January 2025. All of the top 20 accounts are either industrial or commercial accounts. Although it is a bit arbitrary, staff recommends setting the 2-month deposit amount at $6,000. Any business below that amount and 5 years of good payment history would not need a deposit on file. Any business over 6,000 would keep the deposit on file indefinitely. This is designed to be friendly to smaller businesses.
Motion,
Motion to approve the deposit procedures for non-residential utility accounts.
is there a second or?
I'll second.
All right, second. Denied. All right, there's a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion?
I'm confused.
Yeah, I am too, about the six,
Yes, the 6,000, yeah.
Yeah.
So where does that, you're talking about maybe amending this document to add that?
Yes, yeah. I forgot to put it in the packet, but I handed out before, so it would be in that length of time for the deposit. I forgot the exact wording. Where did it? I printed it out for myself. Where did it go? Oh, right there.
Third paper that he handed
Yeah,
out.
so length of time deposit required. Yeah, so we would just change it to any account that has over $6,000 as their 2-month deposit would have to keep it indefinitely. Under that, they'd get it back after 5 years.
Got it.
So
As security, if it's greater, if their deposit amount is in excess of $6,000, you would keep, they need to keep it on file.
Correct, yep. Again, like I said, it's kind of an arbitrary number, finding that balance to where we protect the city, but also give a break to our local smaller businesses. So.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
so you're saying anybody that has over. Okay, setting the 2-month deposit amount at $6,000, so. I'm a very linear person, so are you saying then the most you're gonna take is $12,000 from people, or are you saying that if they have over 12,000, I mean, if they have over. Oh, okay, you're saying 6,000, so you're saying only $3,000.
Per month.
Oh, so if they're over the $3,000 a month, you're still only gonna keep 3,000, I don't understand.
No, we're gonna keep up to that full amount. So like our top person is $82,000 a month. Their 2-month average would be 164. Their deposit on file would be $164,000.
And then what are you saying with the $6,000?
That is, like I said, kind of that arbitrary break even number where we're kind of comfortable eating that cost if they don't pay.
Okay, so you're saying if they fall just above the $6,000, that, okay. So you're saying just above the $3,000 a month, you're saying?
Correct, yeah. So like business number 11 here, their bill in January was $3,012. Their 2-month average would be just over $6,000. They'd still have to have that deposit on file indefinitely.
It's not really well, it's awkwardly written
It
the way
is.
that it's, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, let me see if I can say it in a way that you can understand this. Right, what I think Jordan is trying to communicate, what I understood you to say was that if their deposit amount was less than $6,000,
Oh, right.
then they would get it back after 5 years.
Correct.
But if it's over $6,000, then we would keep it on file
Alright.
indefinitely,
That
because
makes-
there's too much risk to this.
That makes.
Correct.
Yeah, that makes much more sense. Yeah.
Did I say that right?
I thought that's what I just said, but I guess not.
Bernard?
Thank you, Mayor. So yes, I'm very supportive of this change to our deposit policy. I think that 6,000 is a reasonable number that is manageable from a city risk perspective. And the fact that this is gonna, under our current setup, is gonna affect basically 11 customers out of 700 plus in our entire utility system makes me feel pretty good. And we will have the option of the surety bond. Is that
Correct,
still?
yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
the options are cash or a surety bond.
right, okay. So, yeah, I'm supportive of all that. I just, if I could, I just want to thank Councilmember Bump, who really pointed this out. It was not on my screen, but the idea that these large utility customers would have no risk after 5 years was, I think, unreasonable for us to assume that risk. And it's very this is a much better proposal than we had the last time we discussed this. So thank you for that.
Any more questions or comments?
I have a question. Did this change from the last time?
I think there are a few text edits, but the amount wasn't added in. Removed any mention of the personal letter of guarantee, which was nixed at the
okay.
that was the biggest change. Yeah.
Everybody good? All right. All in favor of approving non-residential deposit procedures, say yay. Yay.
Aye. Yay.
Aye, yay. Yeah.
Aye.
Any nays? All right, so approve of non-residential deposit procedures has passed unanimously, no nays. All right, reports and presentations, committee reports, none,
Yes, no committee reports.
and audit update.
Okay, well, this is where the fun is. As I stated, we started field work back on the 14th. We unfortunately have been having some issues with Now CFO. There are some items that they have been working on that only they know the history of before Shantae was on board. There's a handful of items that the auditors have asked for that they have not provided, that Now CFO has not provided the auditors yet. So it's pushing our timeline back a few weeks on completing the audit. I don't know what that looks like, but none of us are happy with Now CFO. And as soon as we can get this audit closed out, we're moving on. So, but it has pushed things back a few weeks. When I get a more concrete timeline, I will update council, but I don't think it'll screw anything up completely, but it does push our timeline back a few weeks. So, and not good news, but I want to keep everybody up to date.
Thank you for the update.
Yeah.
And then your report.
Yeah, again, a lot of administrative stuff. Evaluations were pushed back due May 5th now. As mentioned, for some reason when we talked about this, I had April 15th in my brain for the evaluations done, but it's May 15th. So if everybody gets an evaluation in by May 5th, Ruben can compilate them, and then we can have the evaluation on the next meeting on the 12th. The contract for City Attorney Cleveland actually expired last year. I'm not sure how it got missed. He's willing to re-up the contract at the same rates. It does not require an RFP. There is a exemption within the state rules that legal services don't require an RFP. However, does council wish to explore other options? If council does, I can try and draft an RFP or get quotes or something to put together for the May 12th. I'd say staff, I would recommend just renewing the contract with Attorney Cleveland, just because he knows the history. He's great to work with. That's just as staff, and that's my option. So at this point, I would need a consensus. I know everybody's favorite word, consensus, to move forward, and I can present a new contract for approval at the next council meeting.
Everybody in favor of redoing the thing?
Yes.
Baker, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
All right, that's a consensus. That's everybody.
Yeah. Wastewater treatment plant. The RFP deadline is this Thursday, May 1st, right? Yeah, this Thursday, May 1st at close of business. Staff will open and review them Monday morning and then present options to council on the 12th for selection. Downtown revitalization completion timeline. A public hearing is set for May 12th for council to discuss and approve changes to the zone and comprehensive plan maps. Community development texts will be in front of Planning Commission in May. If these changes are recommended for approval by the commission, they'll be in front of council in June. I will be at the LOC Spring Conference this week, Thursday and Friday. The Oregon City County Managers Association Annual Conference is in July in Bend. I'll be applying for a scholarship for that one as well. I held a 30-minute screening call with the RARE program. Asked a few questions, clarifications on our application projects that the participant would be helping us with. We should have a decision if we are allowed or approved, or whatever the word is, to have a RARE applicant by middle of May. So, they don't actually start their service until August, though. So we actually get three to five that are presented as options. We do interviews to see which one's the best fit for us, and vice versa if they want to come work with us. For that, I know council hasn't voted on it yet, but Tourism Commission approved a part of their budget to go towards this RARE position, and it sounds like the other funding from the Ford Family Foundation will be approved. Hasn't happened yet, but they'd be surprised if it's not approved. So
For what?
for the RARE position, it's $25,000. 15's coming from the Tourism Committee, 10 from the Ford Family Foundation. They don't see any reason why we wouldn't get the Ford family money. If we don't, then we'll back out of the whole thing, because we don't have 10 grand unless we take it from tourism. Last item on here is Memorial Day. It's the 26th, the fourth Monday. Any council needs to decide if they want to reschedule or cancel the meeting.
So all in favor of canceling the meeting?
Consensus again.
Yeah.
Yeah, consensus. So all in favor of canceling the May 26th Memorial Day meeting? Bernard?
Well, I don't want to meet on Memorial Day. But I should we have them on another night? Is that not being considered, or just not? We're only doing one meeting. Is that the proposal?
That's what's being proposed, is one meeting. We also are gonna be real heavy the meeting before, and then we're in budget and all that too, so you're not gonna have a shortage of meetings.
Okay, you sold me.
I was going to say,
Work.
whether this meeting is canceled or rescheduled, May 12th is going to be a very long meeting.
Yeah.
I'm
All right.
sorry.
Then I support canceling the
Yeah.
Memorial Day meeting.
There's just a lot that falls on that meeting.
So you have a consensus to cancel.
A couple items not in the packet here.
When you can go on, just about the RFP for wastewater.
A reminder that we're doing an open house at the fire station Wednesday night. Present to the community on design for solar panel battery microgrid system.
That's what time again?
6 o'clock. Yep. I forwarded everybody an update from our lobbyist with the things going on. The biggest item for council is that he will be doing in-person meetings with a couple senators and representatives Wednesday afternoon. If anybody would like to join, just let me know. He's more than happy to have all of you along as extra leverage.
Yeah, Bernard said he would attend the 3:30, correct?
Yes, if council is supportive of that, I'm happy to make it's 40 minutes from class. So yeah, I'm volunteering to do that.
Okay.
And then does anybody want to do the 2:15 or are we all good with him doing the 3:30? There's 2 meetings that day. And it is down in Salem, it's not Zoom or anything.
Yep.
So 3:30, Bernard will be there.
Okay, Bernard, I'll let Trey know you'll be attending.
Super. Thank you.
Yep. Another item is Lignetics, Bear Mountain Products. They're not officially closing. They're going down from 14 to 3 employees. They're laying off 11 of them. They're not officially closing. I'm not really sure how much production they're going to do with 3 employees. So I'm assuming they're going to fully close at some point, but right now they're down to just 3 employees. So
They give you any reason?
let's in their letter here.
They had.
No, it didn't give a reason. Just we have to get notified when they do some kind of action. Yep.
Yeah, Shelley from down there, I believe that's her name, the human resource lady, said that because we haven't had real extreme winters the last couple of winters, they haven't been selling as many pellets. And we're their 3rd plant that makes pellets, so they chose to cut this one. But if we start having more winters and the pellets are more in demand, then they plan on starting it up, but that's all she could give. As far as, that's why.
I just remember when we had the initial discussion about the rebate,
The deposits.
Deposits,
Yeah.
they were, you know, that was something they said was, you know, we'll close. So I
Yeah,
didn't know
yeah.
if it was related, but
Yeah,
it doesn't sound like
they
that.
didn't mention anything about deposit.
And
Do you know if they own that property or does the port?
they own it.
Yeah.
They own.
Yeah, they bought it from the port 15 years ago,
Okay.
20, somewhere in there. Last item, this actually goes back to the consent agenda. I think it's probably public knowledge at this point or common knowledge. Shelley has sold the ale house, and that's what this application was for the new owners. And it will be the Whiskey Flats Tavern. I don't know when that transition actually takes place, but I think I haven't talked to him yet, but it's common knowledge, and at some point I'll reach out to him, and I'm sure Chief Logan will as well. So
I just had one question about RFP for the wastewater
Yes.
plant. Have you got some already then?
we have not. No, we have talked to one company that said they were going to put one in.
Okay.
It's the same company that took over Mosier's, and also runs the small plant for Multnomah Falls.
What happens if we only get one?
We'll present it to council, and then depending on what the cost is, if it's too high, that's a good question. And it really all depends on what the cost is, what they propose.
So we don't have to send back out for RFP if it's a good number, we can.
Correct, yeah. No, we went through the process. If we get 1 or we get 50, we can pick.
You done?
That is all I have.
Mayor and city council comments. How about Bernard?
Thank you, Mayor. So just a few things. Let's see. First, I'm sure many of you are aware, but Port Commissioner Ted Dodd is doing some amazing work out on the mountain biking trail system that got approved a ways back out near Wyeth. And they're having another trail building event this weekend. It's like a multi-day thing. Some people are going to be camping. But for the locals who want to contribute to that, I believe they're starting up around 9 or 10 on Saturday. And then this is going to be a couple hours of trail building and then a party, a celebration of all the support that volunteers have been doing and the work they've been doing. Anyway, it's a fun thing. If you're curious about what the work they've been doing, come out and join us. It's very simple, groundwork. Anybody can take a hoe or a shovel or whatever they're doing out there. So that support is welcome. I'm planning on going. For what it's worth, the sound via Zoom was excellent this week. I didn't have one instance where someone's voice went down. So if they made tweaks to that, Jordan, thank you, because I definitely saw an improvement.
Exact same system.
Okay, well, there you go. It's random. Let's see. I just want to quickly, maybe you don't know this, but do we know when we're going to find out the outcome of that grant that was submitted by Buddies to, move into the old fire hall and make those improvements? What's the status of that?
I'm going to defer to Main Street President Denise Baker, Emmerling Baker.
Yeah, the nonprofit Main Street, the state is gonna read, the state score is gonna read them on May 6th and the projects that are chosen out of the 73 that submitted across Oregon will be notified by June.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. That's all I had, Mayor.
All right, thank you, Bernard. Denise.
Thank you. First of all, I want to apologize for getting loud. Sometimes I don't know. Family of 6 kids get loud, and I want to apologize to you and council. I don't catch myself sometimes. And I want to thank the mayor for going to meetings, school board and other meetings out of your other time. We are already volunteering a lot of time reading and our packets and being here. And the city administrator for all of the extra meetings he's doing and working with the lobbyists outside of the just being here doing the work, and Councilman Keller for your work with the school board as well. And those who I don't know about, I appreciate that you're not only leaders here, but you're reaching out. I want to say just thank you to the folks that came and gave our reports tonight and the good questions that everybody's sharing, and the Bridgeside stood up. We are lucky for our community restaurants and Ted Dodd organizations doing things. Bridgeside did the egg hunt when there was not another egg hunt this year. So hope that we'll support our local businesses that are trying to step in and do things. That is the main thing that I want to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Denise. Tiffany. Thank you for extending the city administrator review. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm the one that started getting my feet on it, but I appreciate the time. I had a extra appointment that I wasn't expecting this week. And I want to say thank you to Mayor Woods and Marianne for doing the garage sale this weekend. There was a lot of people that came in, a lot of free stuff left over. It's kind of reminded me of Germany because they have those sorts of days where you just leave your stuff out and people come rummage. Maryland Place is still on the phone directory.
Is she? Okay.
Yep. So, and that's been like a year-long thing. And also, I was wondering if you were able to figure out who has access to the city Facebook page.
It's us two and Janice. That's it.
Okay. And then, are we learning how to make it so people can't comment on it for our social media policy?
I think we have to, every time we post, we have to turn comments off.
Okay.
Yep.
And then, the LGIP, do we get how, we get those reports once a month? Do we get those quarterly? The
bank statements?
Huh?
Are you talking about the bank statements?
No, the investment pool.
Yeah, the state, it's a bank statement.
Oh, it's.
Yes, yeah, they're monthly. Yep.
Because we're a little bit behind on those.
Correct, yep.
And then, the flowers in the plaza, are we close to finding those?
I gotta follow up with Sheldon. It was on the to-do list, but as you know, things happen, so.
Agreed, okay. That's all. Thanks, Tiffany. Eric?
It was a horrible time to bring it up and I apologize. I've just spending a lot of time. I understand that the mayor is going to be able to need to speak in instances as the mayor of Cascade Locks. And I was wanting definition and clarity about the differences that would exist for the mayor's responsibilities versus us as council. I imagine that there are some differences that need to exist. I just want to know what those exist. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then second of all, I feel like we should have some sort of business registry. We should know what businesses exist in this community, and I don't know how to make that happen.
It would essentially take a resolution requiring it for business to operate. We couldn't attach a fee to it. However, we could still enforce fines if they don't register. Reading through this food tax that we're hopefully put to a vote and will pass, I think we'll have to have some kind of business registry in place just for that purpose. So I think it is going to have to happen.
Could we throw in some sort of nominal fee into that, or because that would be two separate issues, but they're kind of sort of like, I think of like the new tavern that's gonna open.
Mm-hmm.
Can we have like a $10 fee or some nominal fee to register them as part of that ordinance or?
If council approves it, yeah.
I didn't know if that was too.
I mean, it gets back to the conversation of how council interprets that one paragraph in the charter.
No, what I'm asking is that the food tax ballot measure,
Correct.
can we include in that food tax ballot measure a business licensure fee? Or is that two separate entities?
That's two separate.
Two separate.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yep. I like the idea, but two separate.
Yeah. Was that all you had?
That's all I had.
All right, hey, happy,
Got nothing?
hey, happy. Bob, nothing? All right, I got a few things. Thank you guys for being here. I just wanted to mention to the community that we still have 2 openings on budget committee, one on tourism and one on planning. We're fixing to get into budget season, so if you guys know of anybody that would be interested in being on budget, please try to get them to do that. And I'm gonna start mentioning at every meeting about Forest Lane and speeding and the traffic and the racing and all of that. So it doesn't get off of my radar, cause I haven't mentioned it since I've been on council this time, but it's still an issue. It hasn't gone away. And then there's a lot of roads with potholes, and I know it's not been the season to do it. Is there a list that we need to get to you, or does the city just go around and write them roads down, or how do we do that?
Both. I mean, public works staff will notate it, but if
Okay.
you guys know one, send in a work order request, call Carrie. She'll
Okay.
she'll notate it and she'll get it down to staff.
Okay, so I got a bunch of roads.
Yeah.
All right.
They're just waiting for the weather to be a little more
Yeah.
stable.
Yeah, I understand that. And then today I did my training for the debris thing. The debris recycling down there, so we can open it up on the second Saturday of the month from 8 to 12 for people to drop their yard debris. I've also attended the museum board meeting since last meeting. I attended the spring concert at the elementary school, which was great. There was a big turnout and then the little kids are so cute. But anyway, and then I've met with our city administrator 2 times. I had my court meeting today, and I know that Whiskey Flats Tavern is opening on June 1st.
Oh, nice.
I also know that the Port Commission has decided to accept the collection of the
Yes,
museum
I
collection.
wrote that
from
down,
us.
yep.
So we will start seeing stuff for that happening. And then Bear Mountain, I was gonna update about what Shelley had told me, that it wasn't that they were looking at going out of business or anything. It was just merely because they have so less pellets. And then something for, we don't have to make a decision now, but to think about. The port would like an answer from us whether they can count on us for fireworks this year or not. And then about community picnic, whether they're gonna do it all this year or not, or what we're doing. So just food for thought. You don't have to give any answers now, but know that the port is looking for, they just wanna know if they're gonna be responsible for it or they're not, so they know what to do with their budget and stuff. So food for thought. And then Bernard's gonna attend the meeting, and I think that's all I have. And it was a successful garage sale weekend. Yes, Bernard.
Yeah, just one quick alibi. So I could have sworn I saw an email where we were gonna start that meeting with the council member like one Saturday a month or something. Can someone tell me the status of that? Because I do want to participate in that.
I think any council members have replied, is that correct?
I haven't checked in a couple
Were
weeks.
we supposed to?
Yeah, because we were asking for you guys to come, it was a Google document where you could put in there, so what we're looking at is where we reach out to the community once a month. And every month it will be different, so maybe one month we meet in the morning time, maybe the next month we meet in the evening time, and maybe the next month we meet on the weekend. And then we meet at different businesses to do this.
Right. That's wonderful. All right. So if I go to that Google Doc, I can sign up for dates. Is that what I understand what I got to do?
Yeah, the form's a bit wonky, but it lists out the month and time of day. So morning, afternoon, night.
And we only need like once a month somebody to do it, so it's not a big ask, but so you're not trying to, if someone's got their name in there, I guess, for September, then maybe that's not the month you wanna pick, 'cause we got that month covered, does that make sense? Like, cause we're not looking to do 4 different events in September, we're looking to do it.
Right. And it's just one council member per event, or is it more than one?
Up to 3.
It can be up to 3.
Oh, so you can't, okay.
Council member, mayor, but it can be 1 or up to 3. Well,
Okay.
as long as we don't have a quorum.
Yeah.
Okay, great,
And
thank
like-
you.
For us to do different establishments to different businesses.
Yeah, no, I think we should rotate it around. I've heard that from businesses in town.
Yeah,
So I completely support that and let's do that. Okay, wonderful. Yep, thank you.
all right. I'm in favor of a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, thanks,
Thanks
Bernard.
all.
So no executive session.
No, oh, that's also on the 12th.
Yeah, the 12th. The
Oh my
12th,
goodness.
lovely.
To
That is gonna be
finalize
a doozy.
the contract, yeah.
So can we?
Okay. All right, good night, guys.
That's already the rule.
And that's already, we have